to you. Roll call, we have one of our council members not feeling well. Our Pledge of Allegiance is going to be offered by our Vice Mayor Richard Ortega, following by the invocation, following as with Councilman Mike Anazola. Would you stand and remain standing for both, please?
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Lord God, Heavenly Father, we thank you for this day which you have bestowed upon us, Lord. We are grateful for what you have offered us in this valley, Lord. We ask you to please grant blessing on Councilman Seal and his retirement, Lord. And we ask blessing for our new council members to be sworn in, Arnold, Steve, and Luke, that you give them the guidance they need for their new term, Lord, and the rest of the council that are up here right now, Heavenly Father. We are grateful for our city manager, our city clerk, our department heads, and our employees. And we give you thanks every day, Lord, for everything that you give us for this valley and the city of Safford. We ask this through Christ our Lord. Amen.
Amen. Thank you, Vice Mayor. Thank you, Councilman. That brings us to citizen comments on agenda items and non-agenda items. At this time, I would like to recognize Councilman Sill. And I tell you, words can't express. Bill Sims, our city attorney, is on via phone as well tonight, as he'll be attending every meeting from here on out come January 2023. But as I was saying, Councilman Sill has been very influential to me in just the way he conducts himself, the way he holds himself, and the way he has a love for serving his community. Councilman Sill has served his community for many years at the volunteer firefighting, as well as on the council. And Gene might not have said too much up here at the council, but I will tell you, when he did, as far as I'm concerned, when he did speak, I listened, because he brought such dynamics that, you know, as we chew this apple, there's different sides of each one of us, our bites and stuff, and Gene's bite was completely different, and so Gene, I just want you to know that I appreciate you. I appreciate everything that you've done for the council, for the city, for the betterment of the city, and as always, I appreciate you. Thank you so much. So with that, I'd like to present this award to Councilman Gene Sill for his 12 years of service. And it wasn't just service, it was excellent service. So. Go ahead. No, Gene, would you like to say anything?
Gene Seal, 2016 South 9th Avenue.
All right.
No, I just like to tell each one of you how much I've appreciated working with you over the last 12 years. I've lived here all my life. I love the community and appreciate John for the things that he's done, and appreciate Bill Sims for all the good advice he's given us over the years, and appreciate working with him. And all the members of the staff, you don't see much of me because my job is not to stick my nose in your business, but to, you know, to be up here and to help set policy, and then to allow you to do the things that you do best. And appreciate all you've done, not just as a council member, but because I'm not a council member, I'm a resident of Safford. Being on the council is just something that I did. That's not who I am. And so I appreciate what you do for me and for my next door neighbor and everyone else. And again, don't think that because I haven't been to your office or been talking to you that I don't care, because I do. And I appreciate all that you've done. And thank you very much.
Thank you, Gene. Before you go, can we all get a picture with Gene?
That's why you wore a suit, huh?
All of us, come on. Let's all get a picture. That's why I wore the suit, Vice Mayor, that's right. Gotta make the picture look good. You always try to take his spot.
They always put the little guy in front.
Okay, I heard that. I heard nothing less. Heard you talk.
Keep it down.
Thank you again.
And here's this.
See if you enter here.
You want me to selfie?
Do we have something on IT here? Can we get Bill Sims going? We're gonna take a quick break, or not a quick break, but let's get Bill Sims on the phone. He can't hear us, I believe. So, Luke, would you come on up? And I think, is Tammy, are you reading it to everyone, all of them? Perfect.
What you got up sleeve, Luke? By ourselves, or you want your wife to be by you when you take it out?
Do it all together.
Is it three, you want to just stand there with your right hand in the air or on your Bible, whichever you prefer. Repeat after me, and after I say I, just please state your name. So I do solemnly swear that I will support the Constitution of the United States and the Constitution and laws of the state of Arizona and the ordinances, resolutions, and rules and regulations of the city of Stafford, Arizona. That I will bear true faith and allegiance to the same and defend against all enemies, foreign and domestic, and that I will faithfully and impartially discharge the duties of the office of council member according to the best of my ability, so help me God. Congratulations.
What's your name on? Can you put something behind it?
Bubble gum.
Here. Is it gonna work?
Can do it later.
You want a key?
She'll have taken a second.
Okay. Well, congratulations, council members, and look forward to working with you as always. Brings us to item 8.1, which is, by the way, I appreciate you all being here tonight. And we have a meeting in January, and I want to see just as many of you beautiful smiling faces here as well. I'm just playing with you. You don't have to if you don't want to, but it is good to see you guys. I appreciate your support. Bring us to item 8.1, which is our minutes. Tammy, is there anything that you want to speak on while you're doing your your work walking around there?
No, it's just the October 17th and 24 minutes. Does anybody have any questions on any of them?
Anybody have any questions? Everybody have a chance to look at the minutes?
May I make the motion, we approve the minutes from October 10th and October 24th?
October 17th.
October,
17th and 24th.
17th and 24th, I stand corrected.
Okay,
Second?
we have a motion and a second to approve the meeting minutes of October 17th and October 24th. Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passes. That brings us to item 8.2, the holiday bonus. That is Manager Casella.
Good evening, Mayor, members of council. This is a request for the mayor and council to approve a 2022 holiday bonus check for the City of Safford employees. I had started off by recommending a $200 gross up, meaning that's what the employees would take home. I did want to cover a little bit of ground regarding the holiday bonus and some changes that I think I might want to make with your approval. Over the past few years, the holiday bonus has changed. It's never been consistent. Last year, we had a little bit of a larger amount, and if you recall, the conversation we had was there was some ARPA money floating around for premium pay, and so we had decided that in lieu of that, we were gonna do a somewhat larger number. Staff recommended $500. It was subsequently increased to $1,000, but it was an unusually high one relative to previous years. So this year, and then based on that conversation, I brought the amount back down to what historically had been somewhat of a norm, the $200 level. Part of the discussion we also had was that we were in the process of beginning to look at compensation comprehensively. And so we were rolling out some new information regarding compensation, but we hadn't quite got there yet. Since that time, we have, and that's another one of the reasons why I made the amount lower. So a couple of points that I wanted to make for council to consider is to make the bonus part of our ongoing operational budget. So instead of us going out every year and at the last minute we decide what number we're gonna pick and we take the money out of reserves, since it's something that we do on an annual basis, my recommendation is that we make it part of the budget process and make it part of the discussions that we have. So we'll have obviously some upcoming discussions on the budget coming up now. This one, we wouldn't be able to do that with, obviously, we're in the budget, but I would request that moving forward, since it's an ongoing expense, we use ongoing revenue. And then the other aspect of this that I wanted to talk about a little bit was we had had a conversation regarding compensation at that time when this number was higher. So I just wanted to go over a couple of the items that we did approve in this year's budget that we did end up moving forward with compensation. As you know, we brought a compensation plan to you now. We're going through work sessions so we can implement that in the new budget cycle. But in the current year, here are some of the items that we did do. We did a 50% of the legally allowed annual contribution to the IRS for health savings accounts. We cut employee dependent coverage by 50%. We gave a 3% across the board raise to full-time employees. We still instituted the second half of a 3% what we call longevity for employees. We had the $1,000 bonus marked, the gross up, so it was $1,000 take-home bonus for Christmas. We budgeted $21,000 for employee recognition to cover events and gift giveaways. And in the off-cycle budget, we added a police officer plus vehicle and all equipment. And we gave a $5,000 raise across the board to all sworn police officers. And we added a $5,000 signing bonus to attract new officers. So the reason that I lay all that out there is because in our current conversations, we are now addressing compensation comprehensively. So my recommendation again is to look at the employee bonus for the holidays as part of that compensation, and again, to make it part of our compensation plan and to pay for it using ongoing revenue. So that's all I have.
Okay, so I'm just gonna throw this number out there. I wanna see $500 given And I would like to see that budgeted from here on out, and only increase from there eventually, but I'd like to see 500.
I'm in agreement with you, Mayor, on that.
I'm comfortable with the $200 because of the things that the city has done, you know, through the year. And the fact that it is something we can budget, you know, it will, you know, we'll have it in the budget, and then we can make increases, you know, as the council feels.
Vice Mayor, I understand 100% your take on that, because the council has been very generous over the year. And so I can definitely, I would back yours up if mine was to fail. So I'll make a motion of the $500 Christmas bonus to be added this year as well as previous.
Second.
I have a motion and a second on the floor. Any discussion? Steve?
What will that cost us for all in?
Well, at 200, it's 55, so it's gonna be 2.5 times that. I'm not sure off the top of my head, but if it was 400, it would be 110,000, so it's gonna be somewhere in the neighborhood of 150 to 170,000, all funds.
Seems like a lot of money for us to be spending outside the budget.
And the $200 is 55,000, right?
Correct.
Okay.
And that's grossed up, so that's take home, 200. And I'm with you, Vice Mayor. We start out at 200, we can always add to it, but we can't necessarily subtract from it. The idea is to place it in the budget so we have it budgeted in there and we're not scampering around at the last minute when we add things to it. This is dedicated in the budget. We can put 200 in there and go up if need be.
So is any more discussion?
I'm okay with 400.
I don't know, I don't think we ought to spend over $100,000 outside the budget, ever, for any reason. I mean, I don't know what that'll buy you, probably $330, but, I mean, I'm not gonna throw a fit over it or anything, but it's just a lot of money to plop down because. I'm not saying that we don't all earned it, we have it coming, maybe, no, not if it wasn't budgeted.
Mayor Couch, Councilman Arvizo, did you say 400?
Yeah.
So I'll take a vote on my 500 first, and then we can
Okay,
change it.
so I just wanted to put this out there. Whatever we decide, my hope is that it's consistent. So if we do 5 or 4 or 2, my hope is that, you know, this will be our last year where we do it from reserves, and then moving forward that we're consistent, at least in the near term, so that
Right.
so that it's predictable. So I just want to put that
So
out there.
today, we are just voting on this recommendation, and mine was $500, and then we're going to be adding bonuses in our budget coming in 2023-24.
That's correct.
Period. And we need to set that number, but we don't have to set that number tonight.
Correct, and so the difference will be that, unlike tonight, whatever that amount is, it will come out of your ongoing revenue going forward.
Correct, correct. So all those in favor of $500, raise your hand.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, we got 3 opposed. So that tables that one, so. Huh?
That's fair.
We actually did not
I
raise his
didn't-
hand, and
I
a
didn't
non-vote
vote.
is actually a yes vote.
Okay. So then if the non-vote is a yes vote, we passed $500.
That passed.
Mr. Mayor, this is Bill Sims.
Yes. Go ahead, Bill.
Can you hear?
Can you hear us,
There's
Bill?
one downside of having me on the phone. Yes, can you hear me?
Yes,
Can you hear me?
yes.
The one downside of having me on the phone is I will point out some procedural issues. If you have a unanimous vote, the clerk can just record in the minutes unanimous. If truly you don't have a unanimous vote, under the open meeting law, it was a new statute a year ago. The clerk has to call the roll and you vote, and so that she can identify who votes yes and votes no.
Okay.
So whenever you have a unanimous vote, you don't have to do that. But if you don't have unanimous, you have to have a roll call vote. Sorry.
So we'll do a roll call vote.
So I have more time to make up my mind.
You have more time to change your mind.
Start on that end.
Councilman Lopez.
I was no on that one.
Okay. Councilman Luke Riesel.
Yes.
Councilman Mike Anizola.
Aye.
Myself, Mayor Couch, yes. Vice Mayor.
No.
Councilman McGoy.
I'm not gonna fight the system, but I think, I'm gonna go along with it, but I want next year to not have to make this decision. I want it to already be made for us when we get here.
Will be in the budget, correct? So you're still a no vote or a yes?
I'm a yes, I'll
Okay.
go along with it.
And Mayor Council, I just want to ask one question. Last year when we did this, we gave the bonus to council. Not everyone was happy with that decision. Is it council's wish that you also receive that bonus?
We can't afford it.
I read in the minutes tonight when I was looking at this, it was for everybody.
It was. I just want to double check and
And
make
so
sure that's
if your
that.
numbers are in here at 200 and it was for everybody, that's how you're coming up with your 170,000, therefore leave it alone.
Okay.
All right, that brings us to item 8.3, which is the purchase of sanitation trucks.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. This is a request for Mayor and Council to approve the purchase of a Peterbilt Model 520 with a curb tender power pack sanitation system from Short Equipment out of Phoenix, Arizona. Short Equipment has been approved by the state of Arizona as a state contract number CTR 041812. If you recall, as I mentioned in the last council meeting, staff received notification from previous vendor authorized to purchase the first sanitation truck back in January of 2022 that they were not able to acquire the Peterbilt chassis and will not be able to fill our order. In conversations with the vendor Short Equipment that was authorized to purchase the next two sanitation trucks, they were able to lock in a third for us at the same price quoted as the other two. Staff has found that the state contract price submitted by Short Equipment satisfies all legal requirements of the bidding process. City of Safford Fleet Division estimated and budgeted $365,000 in FY 21-22 for the purchase of a new sanitation truck. These funds were not carried over and reverted to the fund balance. Funding for this purchase would then come from the FY 22-23 contingency funds to cover the expenditure, and reserves would provide the revenue. Staff recommends the Mayor and Council authorize the City Fleet Division to purchase the sanitation truck from Short Equipment for the price of $397,926.78. Any questions on that?
Anybody have any questions?
Mayor, I'll make the motion, we approve the sanitation truck, the Peterbilt Model 520 with curb tender power for the packed sanitation system from Short Equipment.
I second it.
We have a motion and a second to approve the purchase of the sanitation truck by Short for the amount of $397,926.78. Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passes.
Thank you.
Thank you. Brings us to item 8.4, the El Paso Park.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. This is a request for the Mayor and Council to authorize and execute an amendment to the right-of-way that currently exists between the City of Safford and El Paso Natural Gas. It is recommended by staff to execute this amendment. Some of the background is this will be over there at the future El Paso Park area. Currently, we have a 15-foot easement that runs through there with El Paso Natural Gas. We have two main gas lines that run in there, and they're separated by 12 to 14 foot. So this is us working with El Paso Natural Gas to expand that to our current 40-foot standard easement. It was originally established in 1939 with the previous owners, and it is in need of update. It is proposed that the city work with El Paso Natural Gas in good faith to assist in the future development of the park with no monetary exchange for the right-of-way. With that, I'll open it up to questions.
Does anybody have any questions for Gabe? Not entertain a motion?
So moved.
Second.
We have a motion and a second to approve the El Paso Park easement agreement. Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion does pass. Thanks, Gabe. Item 8.5, Planning and Zoning Commission appointments. Jamie?
Yes, good evening, Mayor and Council. Staff requests the reappointment of 2 commissioners and the appointment of 2 new commissioners. Council passed ordinance 022-002 earlier this year to update the appointment process for planning and zoning commissioners. And I've included the new language in case you'd like to go over that. Staff has received written requests to be reappointed from Jerry Hancock and Ed Ragland. Staff has received 2 new applications from Robert C. Hernandez and Ori D. Vaughter. All 4 applicants are residents of the city of Safford and are recommended for appointment. With these appointments, the commission will have a total of 7 members, which will be a full commission. If the council prefers, applications may be sent ahead of time instead of attached for council meetings for future appointments. With that, I will stand for questions.
I'll move we approve the planning and zoning commissioners, their appointments.
Second.
We have a motion and a second to approve the commissioners for the community development, planning and zoning. All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passes. Thanks,
Mayor,
Shane.
can I make one correction to the deal on the mistake I made earlier?
Okay.
On the agenda, and here it says on the agenda it says the 17th, and in the internet packet, Tammy, it said the 10th. That's why I made a mistake.
My apologies.
Okay, just noting that, okay? Thank you.
Okay, brings us to item 8.6, conditional use permit.
Yes, sir. Good evening, Mayor and Council. This is a request to consider conditional use permit request Z76-21 for Graham House LLC. The subject property is Graham County parcel number 10222-415 and is addressed as 110 West 5th Street. The current zoning information is in your packet. The background is that the application was submitted in December of 2021. The applicant held the required neighborhood meeting in July of 2022, and a public hearing was held on September 19th, 2022 before the Planning and Zoning Commission. The applicant did not attend the public hearing and has not responded to staff's request for further information. Staff has discussed the lack of response from the applicant with our attorney. The requested information was not provided for staff to present to council at a public hearing. The City of Safford Municipal Code public hearing states that upon receiving the report and recommendation of the commission, the council shall render a decision, and if requested, shall hold a public hearing in the time and manner as specified in subsection A. In addition, the city may give notice of the hearing in any other manner as it may deem necessary or desirable. Staff is recommending that the City Council deny conditional use permit Z76-21 due to lack of information from the applicant. And the final letter to the applicant in your packet was mailed certified mail. We did receive the tag back, so it was received. We've had no response from the applicant as of this evening. With that, I will stand for questions.
Okay.
With the denial, is there a time limit on when they can refile or?
6 months, and that was included in his letter that he received.
Well, move that we deny the council use permit.
Second.
We have a motion and a second to deny the conditional use permit for permit request is Z7621, parcel number 102-22-415. Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passes. Thanks, Jamie. Okay, that brings us to item 8.7, which is the change of budget authority. Rob?
Good evening, Mayor and members of the council. Staff is requesting approval of the budget amendments to fiscal year 2022's budget in accordance with state statutes and at the request of our external auditor. This request occurs annually and as part of the normal process to close out a particular fiscal year, and this is the last step before our external auditor submits their final report and their financial reports to the community. The request is to move available funding within the general fund from areas of savings to areas where we had exceeded the appropriation that a council adopted in June of 2021. This action tonight does not change that approval and the appropriation from June of 2021. It is merely in order to move where funds are available to where funds were needed. The attachment of the agenda in the packet identifies the movement of those funds from one of the programmatic areas to the other. With that, I'd be glad to answer any questions council may have.
Rob, the way I understand this change of budget authority, that automatically puts you in as our financial director. So are you willing for that?
I second that.
That is not the motion in front. I would ask for the city attorney to opine. I'm joking. Thank you, sir.
I entertain a motion for the change of budget authority.
So moved.
Second.
We have a motion and a second for the change of budget authority as presented by Rob. Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passes. Rob, thank you. Item 9.1, ordinance 22-04, Sawyer rezone. Jamie, you're back on deck.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. Let me get this map up here for you. Okay, so this is the second reading of the Sawyer rezone for ordinance 22-004, an ordinance of the City of Safford, Graham County, Arizona, rezoning Graham County Assessor's Parcel 102-18032A and 102-18032B from conventional manufactured housing to C1 general commercial. The Planning and Zoning Commission recommended approval after their October 17th public hearing. The Commission asked that staff present parking information to their council at their November 14th, 2022 public hearing. No updates were made to ordinance 022-044 after the two public hearings. No further comment has been received by staff.
I'll move we approve ordinance number 022-004, the Sawyer rezone.
Second.
We have a motion and a second to approve ordinance 22-004, the Sawyer rezone. Any discussion? I think everything's been addressed. All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passes. Tamara?
Ordinance number 022-004, an ordinance of the mayor and city council of the city of Safford, Graham County, Arizona, effectuating a map amendment rezoning Graham County Assessor's Parcel number 102-18-032A and 102-18-032B from City of Safford C-MH Conventional Manufactured Home District to City of Safford C1 General Commercial District.
Okay. Thank you. And that brings to item 10.1, resolution 22-043, airport minimum operating standards. This will be by Cameron.
Can I just say something?
Yes,
before
sorry,
we
go
start?
ahead.
He did a beautiful job at the light parade.
Cameron did?
Yes.
Thank you, Vice Mayor. Mayor and Council, this is a request for Mayor and Council to approve resolution numbers R22-043 and R22-044, resolutions adopting the revised Safford Regional Airport rules and regulations and the Safford Regional Airport minimum operating standards. The last versions of the airport rules and regulations and the minimum operating standards were adopted in 2001. In March of this year, city staff initiated a process to draft new rules and regulations document and a new minimum operating standards document. These documents have been prepared, reviewed by tenants, and undergone legal review. Both proposed documents have been updated to reflect current situations at the airport and changes that the airport and the aviation industry have undergone in the last 2 decades. These changes have been made in the best interest of safety and growth at the airport. With that, I'll stand for questions.
Cameron, you mentioned you had tenants look into this as well. Could you tell me who you had look into it from out there?
Absolutely. So we had 2 public meetings. We had one meeting focused on the minimum operating standards for commercial users. That meeting was attended by Ponderosa Aviation, or FBO. Jetcrafters and some of the other commercial users were not able to attend that meeting. However, they attended the next meeting for the rules and regulations. We also sent out copies of both documents. We received their input, and we did make some changes in there just based on their input in the particular situation at the airport.
Perfect, thank you.
I'll move we approve resolution number R22-043, airport minimum operating standards.
Second.
We have a motion and a second to approve resolution 22-043, 43, the airport minimum operating standards. Any discussion amongst us? Go ahead.
I know you've put a lot of work into this, and you've talked to the tenants and legal. I don't know if it's Bill, but also was there a airport background lawyer that listened to you and helped you with it also?
Absolutely, Councilman. So we had our FAA lawyer was involved in the process as well, and he reviewed the documents as well, just to make sure that we're compliant with all appropriate FAA regulations, and then Bill reviewed them as well to make sure we're in compliant with Arizona statutes.
And I'm figure with us being in this position and finally having some rules and stuff, which cover your next two presentations too, it should only be able to enhance any grants that we're seeking.
Correct. So it does put us in a better position when we apply for these grants, just in case we are ever audited. Of course, we go through financial audits, but if the FAA wants to come in and look at how we're actually conducting business at the airport, this absolutely puts us in a better position. And this also puts us in a better position if we want to apply for additional grants in the future.
That's all, Mayor.
Okay, perfect. All right, so we have a resolution R-2243, airport minimum operating standards. We have a motion and a second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passes. Brings to item 10.2, resolution 2244, airport rules and regulations. Cameron?
That was the
Do we need to read those in, or can we read it all in at once?
We could do them all together if you like.
Resolution 2244, go ahead, Cameron.
Okay. That was the same.
Same?
That was the same CCF.
Okay,
So we just need a second motion.
Correct.
okay.
I move that we approve resolution R-22-044, airport rules and regulations.
Second?
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion on the rules and regs? All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passes. Resolution 2245, airport rates and fee schedule. I don't think we've gone over that one. Do you want to talk about that one, or do you want to read the other two in first?
If you don't mind, I'll go ahead and get those two read.
Okay, let's get those out of our way.
Resolution number R-22-043, a resolution of the mayor and city council of the city of Safford, Graham County, Arizona, approving the updated minimum operating standards of the Safford Regional Airport. Resolution number R-22-044, a resolution of the mayor and city council of the city of Safford, Graham County, Arizona, approving the updated rules and regulations of the Safford Regional Airport.
Okay, perfect. Resolution 2245, airport rates and fee schedule. Cameron?
Mayor and Council, this is a request from Mayor and Council to approve resolution number R-22-045, a resolution adopting the revised Safford Regional Airport rate and fee schedule. The current airport rate and fee schedule was last updated in 2015, with most of the rates it contains having remained unchanged since 2001 or earlier. At the direction of Mayor and Council, airport staff engaged in a rate study of airport fees using similar rural airports across Arizona. As data points, staff brought the proposed rate and fee schedule to council on September 26, 2022 as a work session item. The proposed rate and fee schedule has been advertised for 60 days. The proposed updates to the rate and fee schedule represent an increase to be more aligned with current market rates for similar Arizona airports. This increase will allow the airport to better generate revenue and become more self-sufficient as required by our FAA grant assurances. Stand for questions.
Out of all this, can you give me a percentage of the increase? 5%, 10%, 15, 20, what was it?
Mayor, it really depends
I
on.
know it bounced all over the place, but you can round it up.
I would say certain sections remained relatively unchanged. For example, the tie-down fees only increased by $5, so they only increased by, I believe, 10%. However, our T-hanger rent did increase significantly. For the current existing T-hangers, it doubled, and then for the new T-hangers, it tripled.
Okay, and I'm sure that was in our previous meeting minutes prior to tonight. I would have liked to have seen those still though side by side, because I don't go back to when we originally brought this in, so that I could have at least seen what the, what the changes were at that time. So next time you present that, please do that.
I move we approve resolution R-22-045, airport rates and fee schedule.
Second.
Motion and a second, any discussion? Go ahead.
He used the word self-sufficient. I don't see the airport ever making enough money to be self-sufficient, so we gotta keep that in mind when we do our rates. We do wanna encourage people to utilize the airport, so, I've got that in mind, but that's not gonna be accomplished all the way.
Absolutely, Councilman Lopez, and we are looking at what we can do to increase other business ventures at the airport to continue to bring in more revenue. But that's one of the things we absolutely looked at with this rate study, was we wanted to make sure that we're still encouraging development. We didn't want to establish rates so high that it discouraged development, but we also wanted to establish a fair rate with other airports.
I had concern with leases so long, so many years, that we couldn't make changes to that until it matured, because that's, I hope that was looked into.
Absolutely, and we're going to bring a leasing policy as a work session item later in this meeting that will address that as well.
That's all, Mayor.
All right, we have a motion second for R22-45 airport rates and fee schedules. All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passes. We go ahead and read that one in, Tammy.
Resolution number R22-045, a resolution of the mayor and city council of the city of Safford, Graham County, Arizona, approving the updated rate and fee schedule of the Safford Regional Airport.
All right, thank you. Brings us to item 10-4, which is resolution 2246, cemetery policies and regulations amendment. Lance?
Good evening, Mayor and Council. This is a request to review and adopt Resolution R22-046, amending the policies and regulations of the Safford Municipal Cemetery to allow for simple obelisk-type headstones. The current policy and regulations for the cemetery were adopted in July of 2022. Request has been made to staff to allow for obelisk-type headstone, which exceeds the height restriction for headstones in our current policy. A clarification within the policy is proposed to allow for obelisk-type headstones with a maximum height of 6 feet from the ground. Staff is recommending make this approval. Are there any questions? I've included a picture of what obelisk-type headstone in your packet.
I'll move we approve resolution R22-046, cemetery policies and regulations amendment.
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passes.
Thank you.
Resolution 2246. Tammy, would you read that in?
Resolution number R22-046, a resolution of the mayor and city council of the city of Safford, Graham County, Arizona, amending the policies and regulations for the Safford Municipal Cemetery.
Okay, that's going to bring us to item 11, announcement of current events. Anybody have anything under the current events? Go ahead.
Mayor, Council, I just wanted to remind council that, in our November meeting, we canceled the second meeting in November and also the second meeting in December, so there will be no second meeting this month.
Okay, Arnold, you okay with that?
Yep, kinda. I'll reach out to you if I got any.
Okay. The light parade was amazing.
It was, we were number 27, St. Rose was, and I think there might have been 50 floats or something. It was well attended.
Yeah, it's definitely been growing, and so it's something that's, I know that Pam's aware of and stuff, but, and so it's amazing, and once again, so much work goes into parades, and staff, we appreciate that.
Mayor, excuse me, Mayor, Council, I'd just like to take the opportunity to introduce you to two of the new officers that have started with Safford here in the last couple of weeks. If I could have them stand up, I got Officer Jesse Burkett and Officer Cobb Koch, both local here to the Safford area. We brought them over from the county after what you did for us recently, so appreciate that very much. Wanted to introduce them to you.
Guys got a good look at Arnold. He's always speeding in
Yeah.
city limits, so
I'll probably
he'll need you to recognize him.
I'll probably be requesting a little bit deeper bio on you.
We appreciate you guys. Thank you for coming over.
Make sure you take a picture with them.
Anybody else?
I do think that Pam outdid herself. I know she was a nervous wreck. She set the bar up a little higher, so she's in trouble now.
Yeah.
So we'll have to work on her. She did a great job.
Mayor, I have something. We're looking for nomination for the Pride of Safford, so if anybody has any nominations, please get them forward to Pam Frost. This is a pretty good program to honor our citizens that do a great thing for the city of Safford.
And I believe the angel tree's still in effect.
Yes, it is.
Good.
Until Wednesday? Till the 15th.
For the 15th. Anything else? Okay, request for future agenda items. Anybody have anything for that? Okay, report on operational items. Jamie, give us a report on the golf course.
Good evening again, Mayor and Council. The Planning and Community Development Department worked with the Engineering and Utilities Departments to apply for the Visit Arizona Initiative Legacy Golf Course Revitalization Grant. We were awarded $105,000 for the project. This project will recirculate stormwater using a solar pump installed by a local business through an existing feature at the course. It will reduce the amount of water lost to runoff. The project was the idea of the golf course general manager, Dominic Curran, and was designed in-house by our engineers. Most of the labor will be done by golf course employees and city staff. The golf course is a great asset for the city of Safford, and I'm happy to be working toward making it an attraction for visitors and a fun outdoor activity for residents. And I've attached the project information sheets in your packet. If you have any technical questions, Gabe Bowman and Morgan Seal would be happy to answer those. And I can answer any general questions.
General questions, during this process, did we reach out to the town of Thatcher?
We did. The manager of the town of Thatcher meets with our group quarterly for the golf course, and they were in favor as well. And
But
so,
did they offer any help?
There wasn't really any help needed. I wrote the grant and we designed it, so it was very simple. It was a non-competitive grant, and so we pretty much just had to write it, come up with the project, and submit it.
Okay, but you also mentioned that that with this grant, we're going to move forward with, some redesigns and stuff like that. So, I mean, I would like to see some input from them and help as well, meaning, now that we've secured stuff, let's use our neighbors and be very neighborly, that, they get their hands dirty with us.
Yes, and they are working to help us with inmate labor. We're working on sharing that labor, and we share utility costs as well. So we all meet quarterly, and they are on board, and they will be helping, especially with the inmate labor. We weren't able to procure any inmate labor, and Thatcher has some that they can help share.
Okay, well, we've got that. Go ahead, Vice Mayor.
At one time, there was talk about having a sprinkler system put in. Is that a dead issue now? I know the cost was terrible. But
I've been speaking with our interim finance director, and we're going to look at getting a feasibility study and a cost study. The front 9 and the back 9 are on separate systems, and so we could look at some sort of phasing. We'll be discussing that when we discuss the budget with the manager and the interim finance director.
Go ahead.
One of the agreements with Thatcher was like help in certain areas. So, and Gabe wasn't here when we made this agreement with them, so that, to me, says some of their heavy equipment can be mentioned to them to help us.
We can ask Mr. Bowman, but I'm not sure we'll need that much. But if we did, we could definitely ask them for that.
Mayor Council.
Go ahead.
Members of council, I have had discussions with some of the local managers on this to try and see if we can even pool resources, even if we make application for grants, and given the fact that we're doing reused water, and we're trying to look at things like environmental grants and things of that nature, and that we might be able to get some sign-on and some assistance. And again, I'm not putting them on the hook for any amount, but we have had discussions, and they seem amenable to participating in that. So.
Okay. Anybody else have anything for Jamie on the operations of the golf course? All right, thanks, Jamie. We're going to go ahead and close our regular meeting and reconvene into a council work session.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. This is a request for Mayor and Council to provide discussion and direction on the Police Department STEP program. This is a high-level overview in response to Councilwoman Lopez's desire to review the program. Items that will be covered are STEP program origins, STEP program today, Arizona League of City and Town trends, pros and cons regarding the STEP program. far as the STEP program origin, what was the STEP program? A program designed to increase public safety officers' wages every 2 years for 8 years if officers pass certain skills assessments. When was the program established? It was established in 2004, and it was confirmed to continue the program in a salary survey conducted by public sector personnel consultants in 2005. Why was the program established? There were assumptions that a police officer should top out in their pay range within 8 years of service. The reason for this was to establish police officers in the local area early in their career to retain them. Who was it established for? The program was designed for police officers, detectives, police sergeants, and detective sergeants. Any questions so far? The STEP program today, since 2005, the STEP program has adapted. Reasons are assumed to be because of turnover in police department management and HR management. The documentation as far as changes has not been located. Today, the program entails a 2-year STEP program, up to 10 years, which results in 6% increases, which results in a 6% increase every 2 years. Police officers are also able to receive 5% increases for the following certs or degrees: phlebotomy, bachelor's, school resource officer, firearms, and detectives. Lead trends: 15 cities and towns responded when HR reached out to inquire about police department compensation practices. 8 responded and said they do not have a STEP program in place for the police. 7 responded and said they do have a STEP program in place. However, out of the 7 that do have this program in place, 3 of them have a STEP program for all staff, not just the police department. Pros to the STEP program: police officers can clearly understand what they'll be earning and how much can be earned over a period of time, which helps with recruitment and retention. Cons: the STEP increases are not based on performance, which doesn't drive higher performance. All other city employees are not on a STEP program, which brings question to fairness and complicates administrative processes. And with that, I am open to discussion thoughts.
Anybody have any questions? Councilman Lopez?
So, there's no way, you couldn't retrieve any documentation that shows why there was adaptation over these several years?
I could not. I found, or I should say the chief of police found the original policy, and that policy compared to what I could see on the current pay table, there were the differences, but I couldn't find where or when it changed into what it is today.
And a lot of these changes I've seen in here, they affect a financial burden on the city, so that should have come to the council.
Most likely, yes.
This is the way this is established, it's a good deal. I wouldn't want it to go away either. So with all this good going on, how come their wages didn't keep up?
So, as far as I know, their wages were actually more consistent than the rest of staff because of this STEP program. So they have been getting these increases.
Yes, and that's what's not established here with anything, so we need to establish this to where it actually has some guidance for you and the city to go forward with. Like from 8 to 10, I have no idea why that would change from 8 to 10. If they get a 3%, the police department gets a 6% every 2 years.
Yes.
So they get it after 2 years, or they get 3% this year and 3%
After 2 years, they get 6%.
After 2 years, they get 6%.
Right.
And that's if certain things are established.
Yeah, I believe they have to meet certain skills assessments, and perhaps the chief can explain what those are in detail a little more than I can.
Yeah, because nothing you've given us identifies any of that. And I'm sure there's certainly skill sets within this department.
Mayor, council members, Councilman Lopez. So this is actually, we as people, we tend to make things simple and we call it a STEP system, but it's never really been a STEP system. It's called a skill-based advancement program. It's just a lot harder to say, so everybody just says STEPs. But skill-based advancement, so we track internally on what they accomplish. We have set things they have to do at 2 years. Did they accomplish? Are they a general instructor? Are they HGN certified? Are they, so many hours of skills and advancement each time. And so at 4 years, they do that again based on did they grow some more, those kind of things. So there's all kinds of different certifications and things. I sent Danielle a list. There's, I don't know, probably 50 to 100 different things that fall within these different skills and what they can accomplish, because we don't want every officer to be exactly the same with the exact same training. We want to have broad trainings, broad options and opportunities. And so there's lots of different options for them as far as showing their skills, their base, their growth before they get those steps. There's not a guarantee they get it every 2 years. It's based upon their skills and their advancements.
And that's evaluated by you?
By the chief or the captain, yes.
Okay. And so some of them skill sets later on in these changes or adaptation, now you get 5%, it seems like, for the same things.
So the things that you get 5% for, those are things that were established, and I will tell you some of these were done, quite a bit of these were done during Chief Brugman's time, but they were established. The degree is something because it's a bachelor's degree only. We haven't ever given anything for a 2-year degree. So it's something that they work for and obtain over a long period of time. That's above and beyond. Foreign language, Spanish, I've had interpreters come out for it that I've known personally do Japanese, sign language. We use any foreign language pretty much at some point on the street. So it's a talent and a skill that most of us probably don't have. The other things are there because they're extreme liability type stuff. Phlebotomists, we're sticking needles in people's arms. They're things that become a liability. Firearms instructors, those are the guys that do all those things whenever there's an officer involved shooting, any of that kind of stuff. They're the ones that get drug into court to show whether they were proficient, were they capable of doing what they did, those kind of things. So there's reasons behind each one of those things on top of, but it's not, when this program was originally put in at that 8-year period, there was over 30 things you could get a 5% increase for, and that has been whittled down to these things that are probably the most liability type stuff for us.
Yeah, but that part don't explain going to 10 years now, but anyway.
So I can explain the 10 years. It was originally 8 years, and back from 2005 through 2014, when the rest of the city was getting cost of living raises, the police range was not being moved. And so when Chief Brugman arrived, they realized, because we were supposed to max out, we were supposed to be at the complete end of the range. They realized that had occurred, so they made it a 6% step every 2 years, gets us to about 80-something%, and did it over a 10-year period, basically to try and catch up a lot of those that had fallen behind. So it was just a process that the HR director and the chief and manager at the time, I'm not really sure, I wasn't part of it, but it kind of morphed at that point based on the fact that their scale had not been kept up with the rest of the city through cost of livings and those kind of things.
When you're promoted, does the 10 years start all over again?
It not completely. So let's say you have 10 years on and you're promoted. You don't go below where you're currently making, but a sergeant would make, say, at the 4 or 6 year period, so they would go to that point and then have 2 more steps or increases of skill based in that position as a supervisor, showing that they have that responsibility. It's a great program with the skills. It shows and gives them options. One of the struggles in law enforcement, and I give this to Danielle, and she's right, it doesn't show performance, but performance in law enforcement turns into quotas, and that doesn't go well with the community and the people and the citizens. So we base it on their skills and their experience, not performance that way.
Well, I can see not everybody has the phlebotomy, which helps us. You don't have to go down to the emergency room, and the bachelor's degree, that counts for something too. But like the firearms, it seems like even I could qualify every year with the firearms if I go from a 9 to a 40 to a 14 to a 16.
I don't think
you're correct.
Yeah.
Councilman Lopez, you're correct. The qualifying, yes. This is only for the firearms instructors. They're the ones that they're the ones that get called into court to testify on were they actually qualified to do this. If getting the shooting, were they proficient, were they carrying the right ammo, were they carrying the right gun, was it issued correctly, was it functioning correctly, was it all the things that we can get in trouble for, they're the ones that have to stand up and defend the city on all those kind of things. And so every year, they put on the trainings for everyone like you and me who can go qualify, but we don't know enough about firearms to do the other things. They're the ones that put on those things and take on that liability. They're the ones that take that responsibility every time we go to the range. If someone gets hurt, congratulations, they're the ones that get in trouble for that. They're the ones that get in deep water for it. So they're taking on that extra responsibility of making sure that that's all done properly and correct.
So, but it seems like you're the only one that has all this knowledge on how these things are functioning. It's not documented, it's not written down, so what guidance do we have up here?
Within our department, most of the officers have that knowledge. But it's one of those, you're correct. It has not been documented. I had to go back and find the original documentation. Not to say anything, but Vice Mayor Ortega was one of the original voters on this back in 2004. Thank you.
I don't remember.
Thank you. But it was one of those that's been going since then. It's worked great. It's a great incentive. I know I just introduced you to two that just came over from the county. It's a great incentive because they understand now I can go there. I show proficiencies. I get skills. I gain. I have a chance to grow. And the nice part is when you hire someone, you have a place to send them. In other words, here's where you're starting, but in this many years, if you work hard, do your job, gain skills, you can get to here. And that's a really great recruiting process and ability that the rest of the city doesn't have, sadly, to be able to do that when they recruit. And that's really, I think, what they're working on with this compensation plan, is trying to get that position.
Yeah, there has to be some limitations on some of this stuff. Like the 5% increases for the cert. You could get 2 certifications within 1 year. Does that mean you're gonna get to 10%?
So the maximum you can get is 10% for 2 certifications. So if you have a bachelor's degree and speak a foreign language, you can get all these other things, but we're not gonna pay you anymore for them.
Yeah, you can have 4 or 5 skills and only get
2.
I had 2 when I was with the city.
So it's possible, and it's happened probably. You get 5% 1 year, you get 5 and a 6. So you got 11% in this year, plus the 3% that we may have given out.
So based on, and this is another one that hasn't been written, I didn't realize this last year when they gave the 3%. Normally, if you're in the steps, you don't get that. But they did this last year, and I didn't realize that till the other day we were talking, and I realized and found that out. But normally, if you're in steps, you don't get the normal raise, the 3% or the 2% or that. You don't get that because you're in those steps. Once you finish the steps, then you go into the city system and get those raises. So it has been done. I'm not denying it can happen, but that's not the norm that I've known.
See, that's what's not understood because we don't have the documentation.
And I think that's the real issue here, right? So we're working on a compensation plan, which we're documenting extensively, right? And so obviously the police have a compensation plan that has been put in place and is part of the overall compensation plan, but there's not a lot of documentation. So maybe as we move forward with the compensation plan, maybe part of what we can do is to help clarify what is currently involved with, because at some point compensation becomes performance, regardless of how you want to define it, or skill sets or certs, and how that equates to what you make, what your pay is. So if I have a base salary and I have a differential of some kind because I get 2 certs and that's my max, I personally, I don't know if there's ever been a point at which an officer did not get a step, what that criteria would look like. Is there anybody who has ever made it through a year and not gone through the steps? Or, because since I've been here, everybody pretty much walks through the steps. So if there's a nexus between some kind of skill-based assessment and salary, then we probably want to know what that is so we can see what it is as part of this additional step program. And the other part about it is that there is this layering. And again, here we go back to some of the inconsistencies, and we've talked about this in our staff meetings as well. I asked the question, are we giving raises on top of the STEP program? Well, sometimes we do and sometimes we don't. Well, that's not a very satisfying answer. So again, if we can document, write it down, institutionalize what the process are, here's this additional program for police, it's a step program, here's how it works. Let's write it down, so everybody that if you get a change in personnel and you get a new finance director, which hopefully we will shortly, they understand what is going on, and we go through this all the time.
So hang on, John, I need to get caught up in understanding. So, you're saying that if we do raises, so for the city to do raises, you guys go through HR and you do evaluation, and that gives them raises. And the police don't have evaluations, they have the STEP program, correct?
Right.
So that's how they get their raises. So,
Correct.
So realistically, the police department is I'm just throwing this out at you. Realistically, police department is a separate entity, how they get their raises, period. They get their raises through the STEP program
Correct.
that was established in 2005.
Correct.
And then the other city employees get their raises through evaluations.
Not exactly. And
So-
see, here's the problem, because the evaluations currently don't tie to the raises, right? So in a way, it's reflective of, in some ways, the police in the sense that, while in theory, there is some, you do the evaluation, currently, the evaluations don't tie to your salary. We're trying to change that. And I think we should mirror that on the police side. If we have the STEP program and theirs is a different, unique system, then let's define what it is. It's okay to have it as long as we understand how it works.
But I'm saying, if the police department has been working, if it has been working, then why shouldn't we adopt what has been working for them on the city side?
Mayor, council, so when we brought the new compensation plan as a policy work session, we did leave the STEP program in there, we just defined it, and so we kept it at the 10 years as far as how it's working right now, and we just defined the fact that they don't get the COLAs and merits while they're in the STEP program. So we did build it in the policy, we have those limitations on it so that they're not getting so many increases, it pushes them through the range too quickly. So we did finally define it in the new compensation plan, which we did discuss, it just needs to come for approval.
Okay, Glenn?
I think, Mayor, Council, I think you're on the right track, and I may not understand, so I'm hoping I'm way off. But normally with the STEP system, they didn't get the raise that the city was given unless the base changed. In other words, if the base range changed, then they got that percentage with it. So in the compensation plan, we're talking about doing that rate where it's every 3 years. So they, even if they were in the STEP system, if the base changed every 3 years, they would still get that because it keeps them competitive. But other than that, they just get what's in the steps. And then once they're finished with the steps, they go into the city system for that 20% or else, and they would do whatever the rest of the city employees do.
And so the issue really is at this point, is that we shouldn't be standing around like we're standing around the water cooler and talking about how things work. We should have a plan that's written down, everyone can read, everyone understands, and that's why we're talking about compensation. So we did bring you the way that the city compensates its other employees. We went through all the provisions of that. If we need to revisit the police one, and we need to just say, okay, here's their STEP program, let's lay out how this thing works, we can bring those provisions to you, let you look at it, and then make that part of our adoption process. I think the real issue here, and it shows in this presentation, is that things are changing and no one really knows why. There's no documents. Now, it may have been completely legitimate, but we have to, as an organization, document this so that we can follow it going forward and everybody understands how it works.
And that's what you're doing now.
Correct.
And I can agree with that, but I think that it's kind of, why would I want to penalize somebody for something that I failed to do, and that is to gather my documentations? I don't know. I don't know what we're asking for
So,
today. I don't know if we're asking to do away with this and go to where everybody's the same, which in life, not everybody's the same. We're all different.
Mayor, council, so the point of tonight was just to review the program as it is today because Councilman Lopez had questions on it. So we're not necessarily asking to change anything, and like I said, I did add it to the compensation plan as it is today, and just explained, while they're in the STEP program, they don't get the COLA and merits They just get their step increases, and if their range changes within the market, of course, they'll get those,
Okay, so
those
that's what,
increases.
so Councilman Lopez, is that what you're, are you wanting them to follow the same, were you, without putting you on the spot, but I'm putting you on the spot, did this come to you just to try to, as it said in here, to try to, bring fairness in? Is that what it is? Or is this something that's like, hey, you never saw documentations and you want to just get it documented so we know what's going on?
I didn't know I didn't have any documentation till I saw this. I just, and I still don't, and I probably won't for a while. No, I'm not, if you add to your skills that help the city, there ought to be some kind of compensation for it. There's no doubt about that. I mean, if somebody gets a CDL, we give them a little extra. If they have a herbicide spraying certificate, they ought to get some. In the police department, they have their own unique skills that they are improving on that's supposed to benefit us. I just want to grab a hold of it because literally with these numbers, I thought he was running away. And so, I'm not saying that we don't want to be like the police station or the police department be like us. I don't know all that yet. I still didn't know where they were. And the first thing that got me was they have all this. Why didn't the wages and their stuff keep up all this time? Why did we suddenly come up with $5,000 and all this when a lot of this you thought should have kept them up?
Mayor, council, so although they were getting all of this, their ranges, their pay ranges were not changing because nobody's done a market review in so long. So that's why it got behind. So they have a good program in place for the steps, but the range itself wasn't keeping up with the market.
And I guess the other one, the unfair part, the really only unfair part I thought is if we didn't give a raise out to the employees, they still got some.
Yes.
Yeah.
That's what brought my attention right there. So that was the unfairness.
Okay.
Not because they're not getting paid for their skills. If you want to get paid more, go get them skills for us.
Right.
If you want to stay back, then that's what you get. But that's what got my attention.
And Mayor, Council, I think if we can get these policies approved that have the structure in place for the rest of staff, those kind of issues will disappear.
Okay.
Yeah, and that may come back to bite me where we end up paying the
Vice-
employees more too, so, you know, I
Vice Mayor
don't
has
know where
something.
we're at.
All right, Vice Mayor?
Okay. Well, I think, the way I understand, what you're doing now is kind of what we're jumping around asking for, that you're gonna be bringing back a complete package to us, showing what, what everything is, and then that's what we vote and approve.
Yes, so we've done our work sessions on both policies and procedures. We want to go through a few more exercises internally before we bring the policies back for approval, but if we need to review the STEP program as it's written in the compensation plan again, just to kind of bring it full circle, we can do so.
Okay, hang on, Councilman
Anzola.
Anzola.
Okay, how will this, if we did away with it, how would it affect recruiting and retention?
As it stands now, it wouldn't be a good idea because we don't have anything in place as far as our pay practices. If we get what we've brought forward as far as the compensation plan approved, where we have regularly scheduled markets, merits, and COLAs, we would probably be fine. So, because, they can go into what all the other staff are doing as far as increases, but if we don't have that structure in place, we would be hurting without this STEP program in place for the police.
Councilman Arvizo?
So, is this package going to be equal or greater than what we have right now?
We didn't change anything with the STEP program for police other than specifying that they don't get the merits and COLAs, which has been, for the most part, the practice over several years.
And what has
So,
hurt the
and that was
police
only
is
'cause it
that
wasn't
we
written
didn't do
down
market
anywhere.
analysis. So if you had your STEP program as it's currently configured, but we had done analysis of the market, that would have shifted your salary ranges. So you would still be having the same percent increases, but you would be doing it at a higher level. So you wouldn't have fallen behind relative to your colleagues in the valley.
Now, can we still bring up the current plan that we have in place now?
Well, and that's the problem, is we couldn't find the current policy.
But if we do
We have the
find
old
it?
policy back from 2004, 2005, where it establishes the 8-year STEP program, but we don't have anything as far as what's actually being processed right now. the
And if we
10
do
years.
find it?
If we do find it, then yeah, we can certainly bring it back, but I highly doubt that it was actually written in policy. It was more of a practice that kind of just got enfolded and
And
started getting
that
processed.
really is the issue. I mean, even if you maintain it, it has to have definable rules as to how it operates, right? So if you have the STEP program, what does that mean? I mean, the chief is discussing all these different skill sets and how they relate to compensation, but I think everybody pretty much moves through the STEP program unimpeded, as far as I know, and there may be some additional pay based on those skill sets, but I don't think anybody ever gets held back a step if they don't get a skill set, and I could be wrong.
Council, mayor, members of the council, manager, we have actually held some back in the past, but it's for a time period until they finish the skill set. So it may be for 2 months, it may be for up to 6 or 7 months. But for the most part, we as a department give them the opportunities to make sure they're gaining those skills, because it benefits us as a city and the department every time, so.
So it sounds like we need some rules to go by.
I have a question for Chief. So how are you implementing this program if no one knows about it?
It's the program itself has been ongoing since 2005. Like I said, it ran exactly the way it was implemented through the council from 2005 till, I believe it was 2014 when Chief Griffin retired. He was the chief when it was implemented and ran it through. When Chief Brugman came in, and I believe it was the HR Cliff Davis, got involved in trying to figure out, they realized we were behind, and instead of just moving everybody up to being maxed out like they should have with the range, they moved the range and said, we'll leave everybody where we're at, because of cost, I'm sure, and that's where they came up with the 6% gets them to this percentage, keeps everybody about where they are, and it's just kind of been the way it's been run since then. It's not been changed since the original program, other than when they realized how we'd gotten behind in the ranges, that they adjusted it that way.
So but what I'm hearing is like, no one knows what you guys are doing, so how are you guys getting paid if no one knows?
So myself, since I've been in, I've been working very close with HR. The previous HR, back when Skeet was there and I was the captain, when that all went into effect, I worked with the HR director at the time was Norton, Leslie Norton, and we went through and set that program to make sure. And there is some documentation. We have every year, there's a range that shows the police steps for, year 2, year 4, year 6, year 8, year 10. So it's not just we're picking a number out. There is a range scale there that moves now with the rest of the city. When there's a cost of living, it moves the range, or whatever we do, market analysis, then that scale moves with it. So we're not just picking numbers out or any of that. It is set.
So that's accessible to them?
So
That's accessible to the city manager and Danielle?
Yes.
So we have a pay table, and it shows the range with the steps in it, and there's comments on the bottom of that pay table that say, every 2 years, the police get the 6%, and then they get 5% for these certifications. So what I mean when I say we don't have documentation is I don't have a formal policy on it, I just have that pay table with that information on it.
Right, and if you're going to, if you're gonna do 6% every 2 years, that's fairly straightforward.
Yeah.
If you're gonna do 5% for some type of a skill set and no one knows that you've acquired it, or, how it gets implemented, then that's a problem. So again, if we can write something down, and then, since we're talking about compensation in general, let's codify that as well, so everybody knows exactly what we're doing and what it's gonna cost us.
All right, so, Danielle, one last question from me is, when is our last salary study?
I found the one from 2005. Other than that,
Oh,
I
we
haven't.
had to have a salary study before.
I wasn't looking for that, so.
But I keep hearing
it
every
might
3
be
years
out
you're
there.
supposed to have one. I can't imagine we're still living under the 2005 salaries. I can't
Yeah,
imagine.
I mean, I would have to go do some more research. All I've seen is that 2005, but it was specific to this police step program, so.
Chief, you have something?
Mayor and Council, when I was researching this, 2005 was the last salary survey done for citywide. There's been, I think in 2016, they did one for certain departments. They've done
So they
different things here and there.
They picked and pieced where
But
they wanted to go.
there's never been a
All right,
citywide
perfect.
salary survey
That's
system.
that's what I needed to know. I think we need to leave this STEP program in for you guys to continue to do your, whatever you guys want to do. I don't like piecemeal in anything. I think if we're going to have a salary study, it needs to be everything all the way through. Councilman McGoy?
Well, I just want to know if this rectifies the problem we had with some of the officers with longevity making less money than some of your new hires, or not new hires, but, I mean, is that fixed in this?
So, yes and no. With the STEP system, it is fixed in those first 10 years without any problem. That problem came about with the 3% STEP thing that was over 2 years based on their hiring dates. And that will all be rectified by July and shouldn't be a problem again. So we still have some issue with that, but it will be rectified within the next 6 months.
And also, I heard some talk about the city should all be on a STEP program, but if that were to happen, then after 10 years, you guys would have no place to go.
The nice part about this, Councilman McGoy, the reason we like it so much as the police department is because when we hire, we can give them a goal. And the nice part is that they can see where they're gonna go. It's worked well for basically 20 years. It's a great system. It would be great for the rest of the city employees, in my opinion. It would be expensive up front to get people where they needed to be. I get that, but I think it's gonna be the same kind of problem with the other compensated program. As a department head, as a person that does hiring, it's an awesome system to be able to tell employees when they come wanting a job, they're looking to apply, what they can accomplish and where they can get. It really makes a huge difference. And I think what she's working on with the compensation plan is going to do the same kind of thing for the rest of the city, as giving them that option and ability to do that also. Our system works very well because it keeps us up with neighboring, and I hate to say it, town down the street, but it does help us that way in recruitment and retention quite a bit. But what they're working on will also be very well accepted and greatly appreciated for the rest of the city.
Yeah, so when I first started in Safford, it was we would never top out before the STEP program came in. So it was kind of frustrating that we were all stuck at, back then it was like, what, $14, $15 an hour. And there was no incentive to stick around.
And that's what's happened to the other employees right now. So if you look at our salary and our ranges, everybody's either at the beginning or nobody's even past the midpoint because no one's gotten consistent raises in that regard, and they kept moving the ranges every time they gave a COLA. So naturally, relatively speaking, you stayed in the same spot. So that's kind of where everybody else is right now.
And what this would do for the rest of the city, and it's been a benefit for us. Lately, we've lost a few to other entities, but not near compared to what the rest of the city has. And so what it does when you ask, will they get to 80% or they get to that top end up there, if we can get employees there faster, they're more likely to want to stay because now there's a benefit, there's an idea, there's a reason, and that's kind of how it's worked for us. It's very beneficial in being able to move them through, and so they want to stay and continue to move and get there. So once they get to the top, you go into the city's system of, well, you only get a raise if the council gives a cost of living. You only get a raise if you do performance or those kind of things. But that's okay because you're in the top end of the range rather than the bottom end of the range. It makes it a big difference for all employees that way. And I personally, it's a great system. I'd love to see the rest of the city go to it. It works really, really well. But I'm sure there's a lot more to it. Do what?
Does that mean we get firearms training?
Sure.
I'm in.
So but is that the right answer for the city? I'm not telling you it is or isn't. It works very well for employees, and the morale and the recruitment, it's amazing what it would do for them.
It just seems like the two are tied together, and if you were to let go of one or the other, you lose it all.
So, Mayor, Council, I'd like to, I don't necessarily agree that a STEP program is a good idea for the rest of staff. So you have to keep in mind the reason that this was a good idea for the police at the time was simply to push them through their range quicker to top out sooner. I can't say that the city can afford that necessarily, or that that's a good idea, because then you top out so soon and you're kind of stuck, you're in circle too soon. So the plan that we've put in place is rich in a different route where you have more opportunity for different types of increases over a longer period of time. So yes, it does help with recruitment and retention in the police department, but it's not something that I recommend for the entire staff to push through their range so quickly.
And Danielle, I get that, but I think that outside of the police department, I like the idea of something similar to this, to where, but it's based on performance. It's based on what you've done, because that's the last thing I want is to send these two. Excuse me, I don't mean to call you rookies, but I'm calling you rookies tonight. To send them out and say, hey, give me 10 tickets, or, I don't want that at all. I don't want that. I want you to, pull somebody over if they messed up and talk to them and see how cool they are, and if it's me, let me go. But if not, no, I'm just teasing. But to do it that way. So I get what you're saying. I think the STEP program for them is something that we need. Something that I hate to see it go away. Because I'm sorry, you guys, I'm just not about fairness. Life ain't fair. Sometimes one's good for one person and it's not good for the other person. So I could care less about saying, well, it's just not fair. I'm sorry, life's not fair. I don't cave to snowflakes. I won't cave to snowflakes. I'm just letting you know right now, I will not cave to that culture. And so to say that fairness, that don't even register to me. So I think, me personally, I think let's leave this here. Let's roll with this.
Can I just, again, we go through this all the time. When we do the work sessions, I come out and I'm not really sure.
That's why I'm trying to steer it right.
In
that we
terms
leave
of-
something, we leave this one in
So we're talking about
place.
leaving this in place.
Absolutely.
And we'll have a STEP program. We'll do the market analysis so we can adjust the ranges. What I would like to see as the manager is some type of document that tells me how the skill sets get implemented and how that impacts salary.
So tonight, we're not necessarily talking about salaries in general. We're talking about this right here.
No, I am. That's what I'm talking
Right,
about.
and so
if
this
they
right
use
here,
the-
I'd like to see left in place.
Right, I get that.
And that's going to go towards it. I think that there needs to be some great documentation, not just hearsay. I mean,
Right.
good crud. We're talking about the police department. That can't be municipal in court, period. Hearsay is not going to work. So the simple fact is, we're going to get our documentation that's going to work.
It sounds like we're gonna have to create it.
Well, it needs to be created. It needs to come back before the council
Correct.
so that we can
Okay,
vote on it
that's
and
what
it
I-
can get.
that's what I wanted to know.
Absolutely.
Okay.
Mayor,
And is
I
that where
believe
we are as a group?
That's the step you're taking now, is you're gonna be bringing the documentation back.
Right,
Well, I think
I
what-
do want to reiterate, it is in the compensation plan. If you guys would like to see it a little more further as far as to the point where it explains all the different skills they have to go through to get through their steps, we do need to do some work to add that in there, which I can work with the chief on adding that in there. And then we can have another work session to make sure that we're all on the same page as far as the STEP program before we approve the entire compensation plan.
Danielle, did you say that you'd bring to us what skills they have to learn?
Yeah, so.
I don't think that personally, my job to figure, these guys have to, you have to do that. That's the chief's job.
It's not that you have to understand the skills themselves, you just
has
have to
to
understand the mechanism by which they
You
get
have it
raises.
documented.
Yeah, that's all we're saying.
And we have to see it to approve
Yeah,
it, period.
right.
So can we get a document of that 2005 step plan?
I can email that to you guys.
So before I move on, John, you and HR and
I think
you
I'm
guys
good.
all
As long as you
understand.
guys are on the same page, we're gonna use the STEP program. The only difference is we're gonna try and see if we can get the skill sets defined and understand how they relate to people moving through that. We will apply the market analysis, which will shift their ranges so that they don't fall
Absolutely.
behind. So that's the sense I get where we're going.
That's correct.
So when we sit down with the skills, can we sit down with the chief or the captain? And
We'll do work
That'll
session
be
on
work
it. We'll do
sessions.
this, because this isn't right now, you notice I'm not going through the chair, and all.
Yeah.
We're in a work session. We can bring back what we create, and we'll go through it with you, and then you guys can evaluate and see
but
where
when
we're
we do
at.
that,
Yeah.
we can have them there.
Oh, yeah, they'll be there. They'll be there. Yes.
Councilman Lopez, this was yours. Are you in agreement with what's going on?
I can't agree with you that we keep what we have because we don't know what we have yet. We gotta create something. It's gotta be documented. Then we gotta know, a lot of their stuff.
You guys keep saying that. I have documentations in front of me that says there's something that was done, period. So we have something, we just don't have all the ducks in a row.
We'll bring something back to review.
I know.
We'll bring something.
We need to update it, is basically what you're saying.
I know that their stuff happens a lot faster because of the business they're in inherently dangerous. So lots of times they're set up in a way where they retire earlier than a lot of the other public. That affects some of their acceleration on when they get paid. I understand that, so.
So I would like to clarify, I agree with Danielle. I'm not saying this system works great for the whole city. I'd like to clarify that. But a system, to some extent, what she's working on is a great option and working for the city. And other than that, I'd just like to say there's only two types of fare, Mayor, state and county.
Yeah.
And I don't know, Mayor, but at least got you to talk.
But you know what it is? It is something that's out there, and you know, as John's been digging through this and others been digging through this, we're finding some loopholes that need to be addressed and covered. And this has been one, Councilman Lopez, you brought it to us, and we appreciate it. And we found that there's been some eye-openers. And so now it's going,
Adaptation.
There you go. And we're going to move forward with it. So I appreciate it, and we'll be involved, and there'll be actual steps of how this all is going to be produced, and we appreciate it. Thank you.
But did we give some direction?
Yeah, I think
I've got
a good idea.
You speak now or forever hold your peace.
I think we're on the same page.
Okay.
So we move forward to item 2.
Yeah, so we are now going on to item 2.
Great.
Airport leasing policy.
Evening, Mayor and Council. This item is for information, discussion, and direction with respect to establishing an airport leasing policy. A little bit of background as part of the updates to the rules and regulations and the minimum operating standards. Staff noticed there was a lack of guidance or rules regarding leasing ground or buildings at the airport. We've never had a defined leasing policy, which led to inconsistencies in leasing property at the airport to commercial and private users. Airport staff has drafted a complete policy that provides guidelines regarding procedures for leasing property to include application procedures, competitive bidding, commercial leasing requirements, and more. And it is attached for reference. It's time. Questions?
Councilman Lopez, I know you had questions earlier.
I appreciate all you're doing. You came here to try to straighten out what we lack. I think we're headed in the right direction. I appreciate it.
Thank you. The main goal of this policy is we want to establish clear but separate requirements. Currently, we have no guidance, so what we're trying to do here is we've split everything between our commercial users, our businesses, and then our private individuals that just want to build a hangar at the airport for their airplane, or they want to lease something at the airport that we already have established, while also encouraging growth.
You good with it?
I'm good with it, Mayor.
All right. Anybody have anything else for Cameron? All right, that brings us to close the work session and go into item 17.
I move we adjourn.
Second.
I have a motion second.
As friends.
Any opposed?
Thank you, Bill.